One sunny afternoon, a police officer was patrolling a quiet neighborhood when he spotted a striking luxury car gliding smoothly along the road. Its sleek design and polished exterior instantly caught his attention. However, what stood out even more was the driver, a black woman behind the wheel. Immediately, the officer's mind filled with assumptions. He couldn't help but think that a car like that didn't belong to someone like her. Without a second thought, he decided to pull her over. As the lights flashed behind her, the woman calmly steered the car to the side of the road, not showing any signs of panic. The officer approached with an air of authority, ready to challenge her. His demeanor was stern, fueled by the biases he had carried for years. He believed he was enforcing the law, but in reality, he was letting his prejudices guide his actions. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" he asked, his tone sharp. The woman looked at him with a mix of surprise and calm. She responded politely, "I'm not sure, officer. I was just driving." Her composed demeanor was striking, especially in the face of his aggressive questioning. The officer noticed her steady gaze, which seemed to say she wouldn't be intimidated. He glanced at the car, then back at her, ready to accuse her of driving a vehicle that, in his mind, she shouldn't own. Instead, he decided to ask for her driver's license and registration, expecting to see something that would justify his assumptions. As she handed over the documents, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was right to stop her. As the officer stepped back to his patrol car to check her credentials, he replayed the encounter in his mind. This was his chance to assert his authority, to show that he was in control. However, he didn't realize that the moment was about to take a turn he never expected. When he returned to the woman's car, he looked at her license and quickly scanned the information. His eyes widened in disbelief as he saw her name. She wasn't just an ordinary person. She was a well-known figure in the community, recognized for her significant contributions and achievements. This was a person who had worked hard and earned respect, not someone to be treated with disdain because of her race. The realization struck him hard. In that instant, the officer felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. He had acted on assumptions, allowing his biases to cloud his judgment. Here was a woman who had accomplished so much, and he had treated her as if she was lesser, all because of her skin color and the car she drove. The weight of his mistake pressed down on him, and he felt the urge to make things right. With his heart racing, he approached her car again. This time, his expression was different. He didn't just see a driver, he saw a person, a human being deserving of respect. As he stood there, he knew he had to apologize. He had let his biases lead him astray, and it was time to confront that truth. "Ma'am," he began, his voice softer than before, "I'm sorry for how I treated you. I made assumptions based on how you look, and that was wrong. I didn't realize who you were." It took courage to admit his mistake, but he felt it was necessary to acknowledge the wrong he had done. In that moment, the woman looked at him with understanding, not anger. She was aware of the challenges faced by people like her and knew that change often starts with a conversation. The officer's words hung in the air, and for a moment, both of them were silent. The woman looked at him, her expression calm but thoughtful. She could see that he was genuinely remorseful. "Thank you for saying that," she replied softly. "I appreciate your honesty. It's not easy to admit when you're wrong." Her response caught him off guard. He had expected her to be upset or defensive, but instead, she was showing grace. It was a powerful reminder that people often rise above the challenges they face. "I've been in situations like this before," she continued. "It's not just about me. It's about so many others who experience the same thing. We have to keep talking about it." The officer nodded, realizing that their encounter could be an opportunity for learning. "I want to understand better. Can you share what it's like for you?" he asked, genuinely curious. He had always viewed his job as just enforcing the law, but now he was beginning to see that there was more to it. The woman took a deep breath and began to share her experiences. "Sometimes It feels like people see me as just my skin color or the car I drive. They don't see the hard work I've put in or the struggles I've faced. When I'm stopped, it's not just about the traffic violation. It's about the assumptions made about me as a person. As she spoke, the officer listened intently, his earlier judgments fading away. He could see how her story reflected the struggles of many in the community. It made him think about his own role and how his actions could either help or hurt the people he was sworn to protect. I've had to work twice as hard to prove myself, she continued. I started my own business, and every day I fight against stereotypes. It can be exhausting. All I want is to be seen for who I am, not just what I look like. The officer felt a sense of respect growing for her strength. She was not just sharing her story. She was standing up for everyone who had faced similar biases. The conversation opened his eyes wider than ever before. I didn't realize how deep these issues go, he admitted. I've seen things from my side, but I never thought about how it feels from yours. He could feel the weight of his own biases and how they had shaped his view of the world. The woman smiled, sensing his genuine interest. It's not just about police encounters, it's about our daily lives. We need to build understanding, one conversation at a time. It starts with listening to each other. As they talked, the atmosphere shifted from one of tension to one of mutual respect. The officer felt his heart lighten. I want to change how I approach my job. I want to be a better officer, someone who listens and learns, not just judges, he said. His voice was filled with sincerity. Every little step matters, she encouraged him. If you take this experience and share it with your colleagues, it can make a difference. Conversations like this are how we begin to bridge the gap. The officer nodded, inspired by her words. He realized that this encounter was more than just a routine stop. It was a turning point for him. They both understood that their dialogue had the potential to ripple through their communities. With a newfound sense of purpose, the officer asked, "Can we stay in touch? I'd love to hear more about your work and maybe even get involved in some community events." She smiled, glad to see that he was willing to learn and grow. "Absolutely. Let's work together to create change. It's about time we start to build bridges instead of walls." As they exchanged contact information, both felt a sense of hope. They knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey towards understanding and respect, one that could transform lives and inspire others along the way. After their impactful conversation, the officer and the woman began to exchange messages. They both felt a sense of excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. The officer had a lot of questions about her experiences and the challenges she faced, while she was eager to share her story and ideas for positive change in their community. One weekend, they decided to meet for coffee at a local cafe. As they settled into a cozy corner, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, and it felt like a perfect setting for an important discussion. The officer arrived first, a little nervous but eager to learn. When the woman walked in, he noticed her confident stride and the way she greeted everyone with a smile. "Hi. It's great to see you again," she said, her energy brightening the room. "I've been looking forward to our chat." "Me too," he replied, feeling his nerves settle. "I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me." They began their conversation, diving into the issues that mattered most. The woman shared stories about her childhood and the lessons she learned from her parents about hard work and perseverance. "They always taught me to stand tall and never let anyone make me feel small," she said. "That's why I started my business. I wanted to show others that it's possible to succeed, no matter what obstacles come your way." The officer listened intently, realizing how powerful her story was. He admired her determination and resilience. "That's incredible," he said. "I can't imagine how tough it must have been to overcome those challenges." "It wasn't easy, but I've always believed in myself," she replied. "I've faced discrimination and doubt, but I use those experiences to fuel my passion for change. I want to inspire others to rise above and create a more inclusive world. As they talked, the officer opened up about his own experiences on the job. He described some of the challenges he faced in law enforcement, particularly the pressure to make quick judgments. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm caught between following the rules and doing what's right," he confessed. "It's hard to balance enforcing the law with treating people fairly." The woman nodded, understanding the complexity of his role. "I get that," she said. "It's important for police officers to remember that everyone they encounter is a human being with their own story. Just like you're learning from me, you can teach your colleagues to see the person behind the badge." Their discussion flowed naturally, filled with laughter, serious moments, and shared insights. They talked about community events, local programs that supported minority groups, and ways to promote understanding between police and the community. The officer felt invigorated by her ideas and how passionate she was about making a difference. By the end of their coffee meeting, they had come up with a plan. They decided to organize a community forum where police officers could come together with residents to share their experiences and discuss ways to improve relationships. The woman offered to help spread the word, while the officer promised to rally his colleagues to attend. "I really believe we can make a difference," he said, feeling hopeful. "If we can create a space for open dialogue, we can start to change perceptions and build trust." The woman smiled, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Exactly. It starts with one conversation, and it can grow from there. We need to show people that we're all in this together." As they wrapped up their meeting, they exchanged ideas and set a date for the forum. The officer left the cafe feeling inspired and motivated. He realized that this journey was about more than just improving policing. It was about creating a better future for everyone in the community. As he walked to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had met someone truly special. She was a force of nature, dedicated to bringing change and awareness to issues that mattered deeply. He knew this was just the beginning of a partnership that could create lasting impact, and he was excited about what lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, the officer and the woman worked tirelessly to prepare for the community forum. They spent evenings brainstorming ideas, drafting flyers, and reaching out to local organizations for support. The officer was determined to ensure that his fellow officers understood the importance of this event, while the woman focused on getting the community excited about participating. As the date of the forum approached, anticipation filled the air. The officer felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Would people show up? Would they be willing to engage in meaningful conversations? The woman reassured him, "Just remember, this is about creating a space for understanding. People want to connect, and they want to be heard." On the day of the event, they arrived early to set up the space. The venue was a local community center, and it had a welcoming feel with its bright walls and large windows letting in sunlight. They arranged chairs in a circle to encourage open dialogue, placing a table with refreshments nearby to create a relaxed atmosphere. As the time for the forum approached, attendees began to trickle in. The officer was pleasantly surprised to see a mix of people: families, young adults, community leaders, and even some of his fellow officers. The woman greeted everyone with warmth, making sure they felt comfortable. "Thank you for coming. This is a great opportunity for all of us to learn from each other," she said enthusiastically. Once everyone had settled in, the officer stepped up to speak. He felt a little nervous, but he remembered the woman's encouraging words. "Thank you all for being here today. This forum is about understanding and bridging the gap between the police and our community. We want to hear your voices and share our experiences too." The room buzzed with energy as people nodded and murmured their agreement. The woman stood beside him, ready to facilitate the discussion. "Let's start by sharing our stories. Who would like to go first?" she asked, her voice inviting. An elderly man raised his hand, sharing his experience of being unfairly treated by police in his youth. His voice shook slightly, but he spoke with courage. "I've always felt judged because of my skin color. It's been a long journey to feel respected," he said. The officer listened intently, feeling the weight of the man's words. Others began to share their stories too, creating a powerful atmosphere of openness. A young woman spoke about her encounters with law enforcement, while a father talked about his fears for his son when he goes out. The officer felt a deep sense of empathy growing within him. When it was the officer's turn to speak, he addressed the room with honesty. "I want you to know that not all officers think the same way. I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm committed to being better. I want to serve and protect everyone equally." His words were met with a mix of skepticism and hope, but he felt it was important to be transparent. As the discussion continued, the woman encouraged the group to think about solutions. "What can we do together to improve our community?" she asked. Ideas flowed freely as people shared thoughts on workshops, training sessions for police officers, and community events to build trust. The officer felt invigorated by the energy in the room. He realized that this gathering was not just about addressing past grievances. It was about creating a future filled with hope. The connections being made were invaluable, and he could see the possibility of change blossoming right before his eyes. As the forum came to a close, people expressed their gratitude for the opportunity to speak and be heard. The officer and the woman exchanged smiles, knowing that they had started something meaningful. As everyone began to leave, several attendees approached the officer, thanking him for his openness. They shared their own stories and encouraged him to keep the dialogue going. The officer felt a sense of pride. He was part of something bigger than himself now. The woman walked over, her face lit up with excitement. "We did it. This is just the beginning," she said. They both felt a strong sense of purpose, ready to continue working together to foster understanding and change in their community. They knew that the conversations they started that day could lead to real progress and healing. After the successful community forum, the officer and the woman felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had seen how powerful it was to create a space where people could share their stories and connect with one another. The positive feedback from the attendees filled them with hope, and they knew they had to keep the momentum going. In the days that followed, they met regularly to plan future events. They brainstormed ideas for workshops that would bring police officers and community members together in fun, interactive ways. The woman suggested organizing neighborhood cleanup days where residents and police could work side by side. "It's a great way to build trust while making our community better," she said enthusiastically. The officer loved the idea. He could see how working together on a project could break down barriers and help people see each other as allies. "We could also set up some informational sessions," he proposed. "Officers can share what they do and why they do it, and the community can ask questions. Transparency is key to building trust." As they planned, they decided to involve local schools as well. They believed that educating young people about respect and understanding would help shape a better future. They envisioned creating programs where students could engage with police officers in a positive way, learning about their roles and responsibilities while also sharing their perspectives. With their plans taking shape, the officer reached out to his department, eager to gain support for their initiatives. He presented the idea of community workshops and cleanup days to his fellow officers during a meeting. "I know that many of you want to make a positive impact in our community," he said, addressing his colleagues. "This is our chance to connect and show that we're here to help, not to judge." To his relief, many officers were supportive. They understood the importance of fostering good relationships with the community they served. Some even volunteered to help organize the events. The officer felt a sense of pride in knowing that he was influencing his peers to take part in this journey toward better understanding and connection. Meanwhile, the woman took to social media to spread the word about their upcoming initiatives. She crafted posts that shared stories from the recent forum, highlighting the importance of collaboration and unity. Her passion was contagious, and she quickly garnered support from various community groups. People were excited about the idea of working together and making their neighborhood a better place. As the first cleanup day approached, they felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. They hoped that people would show up and participate. On the day of the event, the sun shone brightly, and a sense of anticipation filled the air. The officer arrived early, setting up tables with refreshments and supplies for the cleanup. Slowly, people began to arrive. Families, kids, and even a few elderly neighbors came out to join. When the woman arrived, she brought energy and enthusiasm, rallying everyone together. "Thank you all for being here. Today, we're not just cleaning up, we're building connections," she called out. The officer felt his nerves settle as he watched the community members chat and laugh while they picked up trash and planted flowers in local parks. He joined a group of children who were excitedly collecting litter. As he helped them, he saw their smiles and felt a sense of joy. This was more than just a cleanup. It was about creating memories and showing that they could work together for a common cause. Throughout the day, the atmosphere was filled with camaraderie. Neighbors shared stories, officers listened, and laughter echoed in the parks. The officer couldn't help but feel grateful for the progress they were making. He realized that with every event, they were breaking down the walls of misunderstanding and building bridges of trust. By the end of the day, the park looked beautiful, and the community felt more connected than ever. People thanked the officer and the woman for organizing the event, expressing their hope for more initiatives like this in the future. As they packed up the supplies, the woman turned to the officer with a huge smile. "This was amazing. Look at what we've started together." He nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "Yes, and it's just the beginning. Imagine what else we can achieve if we keep this going." With that, they made plans for their next event, excited about the future and the potential for continued growth in their community. They knew that change wouldn't happen overnight, but with each step they took together, they were getting closer to a more inclusive and understanding world. As the days turned into weeks, the officer and the woman continued their journey of community building. The success of the cleanup day gave them the motivation to plan even more events. They were determined to keep the spirit of connection alive in their neighborhood. Their next big idea was to host a community BBQ day at the local park. They wanted to create an informal setting where families could enjoy good food while getting to know their local police officers better. "Food brings people together," the woman said with a grin. "Let's make it a fun day with games and activities for the kids, too." The officer agreed wholeheartedly. "We can set up a few booths where officers can explain their roles, and maybe we can have some local musicians perform," he added. They envisioned a day filled with laughter, music, and a sense of togetherness. In preparation for the BBQ, they reached out to local businesses for donations. Many were happy to help, providing burgers, hot dogs, drinks, and snacks. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People were excited about the chance to meet their neighbors and build relationships with those who served them. As the day of the BBQ approached, the officer and the woman spent long hours planning the details. They organized activities like sack races, face painting, and a basketball shootout. The officer even arranged for some of his colleagues to play games with the kids, showing them that police officers could be approachable and fun. On the day of the BBQ, the sun was shining brightly, and the park was filled with the smell of grilled food. People began to arrive early, bringing their families and friends. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and chatter. Children ran around excitedly, playing games and making new friends. When the officer arrived, he felt a rush of happiness as he looked around. Families were gathered at picnic tables, and groups of people were chatting and enjoying their meals. The woman was already busy helping set up the food tables, her enthusiasm infectious. "Welcome, everyone," she announced, gathering attention. "Thank you for coming today. Let's enjoy some great food and get to know each other better." As people settled in, the officer took a moment to walk around, greeting attendees and chatting with them. He noticed how comfortable people seemed, laughing and sharing stories. It was heartwarming to see the community come together, breaking bread and building connections. Throughout the event, there were moments that stood out. A group of children lined up to participate in a friendly basketball game with the officers. The officers showed off their skills, but were also quick to let the kids score a few points, making everyone laugh and cheer. At one point, the officer overheard a conversation between two neighbors. One of them shared a past negative experience with police, while the other encouraged them to look beyond their past experiences and see how things were changing. This open dialogue was exactly what the officer and the woman hoped to foster. As the afternoon rolled on, the sound of live music filled the air. Local musicians performed upbeat songs that got everyone dancing. The officer couldn't resist joining in, and soon a small crowd formed around him, clapping along and having fun. It was a wonderful sight to see everyone enjoying themselves, feeling a sense of unity. As the sun began to set, the officer gathered everyone together for a closing speech. "I want to thank all of you for coming out today. It's been amazing to see our community come together like this. We are all neighbors, and it's important that we support one another," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. The woman stepped up to add, "Let's keep this spirit alive. We have the power to change our community for the better, one event at a time. Together, we can make a difference." Applause erupted, and cheers filled the park. The officer felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. They had accomplished what they set out to do: bring people together, create connections, and foster understanding. As the event came to a close, people began to gather their things, but many lingered, chatting with each other and exchanging contact information. The officer and the woman looked at each other, smiling, knowing they had sparked something meaningful. They began planning their next event, eager to keep the energy and connection alive in their community. They understood that change takes time, but with each gathering, they were building a foundation of trust and understanding that would last for years to come. The community BBQ was such a success that the officer and the woman felt inspired to keep their initiative going. They wanted to build on the connections they had made and keep the conversations flowing. After discussing several ideas, they decided to host a community discussion night at the local library. This event would focus on important topics such as safety, education, and community resources. They believed that bringing in local experts could enrich the discussions and provide valuable insights to attendees. The woman reached out to teachers, social workers, and community leaders, asking if they would be willing to participate. Everyone she spoke to was eager to help. With the date set, they began to advertise the event in various ways. They created colorful flyers and posted them on social media, urging community members to come and share their thoughts. "This is a chance to have your voice heard," the woman wrote in one of her posts. "Let's come together to discuss how we can make our community a safer and more supportive place for everyone." As the evening of the discussion approached, excitement filled the air. They set up the library's meeting room with chairs arranged in a circle to promote an open dialogue. The officer arrived early to help with the setup, feeling a sense of purpose. He decorated the room with banners that read, "Your voice matters," and "Together, we can make a difference." When the night finally arrived, the room buzzed with energy as people began to filter in. Families, students, and community members of all ages filled the space. The woman welcomed everyone warmly, her enthusiasm infectious. "Thank you all for being here. Tonight, we're going to talk about how we can work together to create positive changes in our community." The officer took the microphone, introducing the panel of experts who had agreed to join the discussion. He spoke about the importance of these conversations, reminding everyone that their opinions matter. "This is your chance to ask questions and share your thoughts. We're here to listen," he said earnestly. As the discussion began, people shared their concerns about safety in their neighborhoods. A parent spoke about the worries they had for their children when they were out playing. Another attendee mentioned issues with local traffic and how it made walking to school feel unsafe. The officer listened closely, taking notes and nodding in understanding. He realized how important it was for him and his colleagues to hear these perspectives. He assured the group, "We will take these concerns seriously and work on solutions together." The woman guided the discussion, encouraging attendees to offer suggestions. A local teacher suggested creating a neighborhood watch program. "If we come together as a community, we can keep an eye out for one another," she said. The idea resonated with many people in the room, and they began brainstorming ways to implement it. As the conversation continued, other topics emerged, like the need for more after-school programs for kids and resources for families in need. The atmosphere was filled with positivity and collaboration as people shared ideas and built on each other's thoughts. The officer felt a growing sense of hope. This was what he had envisioned when he first met the woman. Towards the end of the evening, they opened the floor for personal stories. One young man shared how he had been helped by local services during a tough time in his life. His story was powerful and touched everyone. "It's important for us to lift each other up and support those in need," he said. As the night wound down, the officer and the woman expressed their gratitude to everyone who attended. They reminded the group that the discussions didn't have to end there. "We will take what we've talked about tonight and turn it into action. We will organize more events to keep these conversations going," the woman promised. People began to leave, but many lingered, talking and exchanging contact information. The officer and the woman felt a sense of pride in what they had accomplished. They had created a safe space for dialogue, where community members felt empowered to share their thoughts and experiences. As they cleaned up the meeting room, the woman turned to the officer with a smile. "Tonight was amazing. We're really building something special here." He nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "This is just the beginning. I can't wait to see what we can do next." They both knew that with each event, they were laying the groundwork for a stronger, more connected community, one conversation at a time. As the community discussions continued to thrive, the officer and the woman realized they were building a real movement. The energy and enthusiasm they were fostering were not just changing perceptions. They were inspiring action. They decided it was time to take their efforts to the next level by launching a community action committee. This committee would focus on implementing the ideas and suggestions that emerged from their discussions. The officer and the woman held a meeting to gather interested community members. They sent out invitations and encouraged everyone who had attended previous events to join. "This is your chance to help shape the future of our community," the woman said excitedly in her announcements. "We want to hear your voices and see your ideas come to life." On the day of the meeting, the room was filled with eager faces. There were parents, students, teachers, and even local business owners, all ready to get involved. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as the officer and the woman welcomed everyone. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we're going to brainstorm how we can turn our ideas into action," the officer said. They started the meeting by reviewing the suggestions that had come up in previous discussions. Ideas like the Neighborhood Watch program, after-school activities, and community clean-up days were all on the table. The officer emphasized that everyone's input was valuable and that they wanted to create a plan that reflected the community's needs. The group broke into smaller teams to discuss specific ideas. One team focused on the Neighborhood Watch program, brainstorming how they could recruit volunteers and set up meetings to train participants. Another group worked on creating a schedule for after-school programs, discussing what activities would be most beneficial for local kids. The woman walked around the room, encouraging teams and listening to their ideas. "This is fantastic. Let's think about how we can make these programs accessible to everyone," she said. Her energy motivated everyone to share more, and the room filled with laughter and chatter as they discussed plans. As the teams presented their ideas, it became clear that there was a strong desire for connection. The Neighborhood Watch program would not only help improve safety, but also bring people together. "We can have monthly meetings to discuss concerns and keep each other informed," one participant suggested. The idea was met with enthusiasm, and everyone began to see the potential for building stronger relationships. The after-school programs sparked even more excitement. "What if we offered different activities each week?" a teacher proposed. "We could have sports, art classes, and even tutoring sessions." This idea resonated with the group, and they began planning how to reach out to local organizations to support these initiatives. After a productive brainstorming session, the officer and the woman gathered everyone together again to discuss next steps. "We've made incredible progress today," the officer said. "Now, we need to take action. Let's set deadlines for our plans and establish committees for each initiative." The group agreed, and they divided into smaller committees, assigning tasks to make sure everyone had a role in bringing their ideas to life. The sense of ownership in the room was palpable. Each person felt they were a part of something meaningful. As the meeting came to a close, the officer and the woman felt proud of what they had accomplished. They had not only created a space for discussion, but also ignited a desire for positive change. The community was actively involved in shaping its future. The woman looked around the room, seeing the smiling faces of her neighbors and friends. "Let's keep this momentum going. We'll schedule our next meeting soon to check in on our progress," she announced. After everyone left, the officer turned to the woman. "I'm amazed at how far we've come. It's inspiring to see so many people eager to contribute." She nodded, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "This is just the start. Imagine how much we can accomplish together." They knew there would be challenges ahead, but with their community rallying together, they felt ready to face anything. Each meeting, event, and discussion was bringing them closer to a brighter, more connected future. The journey ahead promised to be filled with learning, growth, and the strength of unity. As the weeks passed, the energy surrounding the Community Action Committee grew stronger. The officer and the woman were thrilled to see so many community members actively participating and taking on various roles. It felt as if they were part of something bigger than themselves, something that could truly change their neighborhood for the better. They held regular meetings to keep everyone updated and on track. Each committee presented progress on their initiatives, sharing successes and challenges. The atmosphere was always supportive and encouraging, with everyone eager to lend a hand or offer advice. People who were once strangers now felt like friends, bonded by their shared purpose. One evening, during one of these meetings, the officer suggested a community festival to showcase all the initiatives they had been working on. "Let's invite everyone to come together for a day of fun and celebration. We can have booths for the Neighborhood Watch program, after-school activities, and other community resources," he proposed. The room erupted with excitement. "We could have games, food trucks, and live music," someone shouted. The woman jumped in. "Let's also include a talent show. It would be a great way for everyone to showcase their skills and have a good time." Planning for the festival began immediately. They set a date and divided tasks among the committees. Some members took charge of organizing entertainment, while others focused on gathering donations from local businesses. The excitement in the air was palpable. Everyone felt a sense of pride in being part of this event. As the festival day approached, they worked hard to finalize details. The community came together, painting signs, setting up booths, and arranging seating in the park. The officer and the woman spent hours coordinating with performers and vendors, ensuring everything was in place for a successful day. Finally, the day of the festival arrived. The sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze flowed through the park. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Families arrived early, setting up picnic blankets and claiming spots to enjoy the festivities. There was laughter and chatter as people greeted each other, clearly excited for the day ahead. As the festival kicked off, the officer welcomed everyone with a heartfelt speech. "Thank you all for coming today. This festival is a celebration of our community and the incredible work we've done together. Let's enjoy this day and continue to build the strong connections we've started." After his speech, the activities began. Kids rushed to the game booths, their laughter ringing out as they played. Families enjoyed delicious food from local vendors, while others watched local musicians perform. The festival showcased the diverse talents of their community, with performances ranging from dance to poetry. Throughout the day, the Neighborhood Watch Committee set up a booth, sharing information and encouraging people to sign up. Many attendees expressed interest, eager to be a part of the program. The After-School Activities Committee also had a booth where kids could sign up for upcoming programs, generating excitement for the new opportunities. As the sun began to set, the highlight of the day arrived, the talent show. Community members took to the stage, showcasing their skills. From singing to dancing to magic tricks, everyone brought their best. The audience cheered, clapped, and even joined in on some of the performances. It was a beautiful display of community spirit and talent. At the end of the festival, the officer and the woman stood together, looking around at the smiling faces. "We did it. This is amazing," the woman exclaimed. The officer nodded, filled with pride. "It's incredible to see everyone coming together like this. It shows how much we can achieve when we unite." As people began to pack up and head home, many expressed their gratitude to the officer and the woman. They thanked them for organizing such a wonderful event that brought everyone together. "We need to do this again soon," one neighbor said, beaming. The officer and the woman agreed wholeheartedly. They understood that the festival was not just a celebration, but a foundation for ongoing connection and collaboration. It had created lasting memories and relationships that would continue to grow. As they cleaned up, they reflected on how far they had come since that first encounter. They had transformed their community into a place where people felt safe, heard, and valued. The journey was just beginning, but they knew they were on the right path. The community's spirit of cooperation and understanding would lead them to an even brighter future. With each event and gathering, they were not only changing perceptions, but also creating a legacy of unity and support for generations to come.